So I want to talk about a topic that I see arising over and over again in my work in working with sexuality and tantra, and that is that especially as we grow up, we are exposed to a principle that makes sense but doesn't really work, and that is the idea that fear makes us safe. So this especially exists a lot in our sexuality, that our mothers or our parents wanted us to be safe, and that what they thought would be helpful would be to make us feel afraid of sexuality, afraid of either our own sexuality or other people's sexuality or all of it. So just give a little example, because I certainly had this. So when I grew up, I had a very safe and loving childhood. It was fantastic, and certainly I received messages, you know, quite normal ones, not talking to strangers and this and that. But I noticed, not just from my parents, but from the culture around me, there was a big message that it's not safe to be sexual. So, okay, I'm sure this isn't unfamiliar at all. It's not safe to wear that dress. It's not safe to express that sexual energy. It's not safe to receive sexual energy from a man, and so on. So this is kind of surprisingly normal. And indeed, this kind of fear does make you safe, because it tends to shut you down quite a lot in your sexuality, in a way. In another way, of course, we all drank a lot of alcohol, and that's when all our barriers came down. So a lot of our sexual experiences were actually unsafe, even more unsafe, because we had to get drunk in order to do them. So it kind of flipped back on itself. Anyway, what I noticed as I started to develop my sexuality in the early years is that this fear not only kept me away from getting raped or sexual predators and all these nasties that my community was trying to protect me from, but it also kept me away from my own lovers. It kept me from being able to share my sexuality with those that I wanted to share it with, because my sexual energy was kind of frozen in fear. Shut down, didn't really know where it was, didn't know how to access it. It was literally frozen in fear. I'm so grateful that I fell into the path of Tantra. I met a man when I was early 20s who practiced Tantra, and I married him and stayed together with him for a decade. But above that relationship, actually what really helped me to shift this was women's workshops. Probably why I have such a big passion for teaching them now. I lived in a place where there was an abundance of women's workshops happening, and slowly I began to explore things that I had been afraid of in the safety of an all-women's setting. So I finally could explore the power of my own body. I could explore dancing in erotic ways and being seen and being supported by my sisters. I could watch them dance. I could massage my breasts, I could touch my body, I could put a jade egg crystal inside my yoni and start to feel energies moving there again. So I went on a big path of sexual empowerment, and discovered that then I knew how to share with my lovers, with my men in my life, and it's been such a big blessing. So I share my personal story because what I really want to share is that this idea that fear keeps us safe is actually also holding us back from our own life force. And so I also understand it as well. I'm not just angry with my community for passing on some ideas of fear. I totally get it. You know, like many people experience that at school when they're taught about sexuality, they receive a message. It's all about fear of getting an STI and whatever. And yes, these things exist. Fear of getting pregnant. Yep, that's true. I get it. And now actually I have a couple of young nieces, and I feel that fear. I'm the next generation and thinking, oh my God, they live in a world of lots of porn and internet sexting and all kinds of things, and I kind of want to protect them. And I understand why our mothers and grandmothers try to make us afraid of all of this, to try and keep us safe. However, through my experience, I've discovered that it doesn't help because when you make someone fearful, you actually disempower them massively. And fear is, well, everybody says, you know, like fear can be smelt, right? It's like a scent that you give off, and dogs will bark at you when you're afraid, and you know, animals can smell when you're afraid, as will the predators. The man that will follow you down the alley, or the guy that gropes you on the dance floor, he can smell your fear. So it is not in any way going to protect you to have a fear around your sexuality. It is only a hindrance. So I understand where it comes from, and have gratitude to all those that try to protect me. And what I see is really needed is empowerment, sexual empowerment. Sexual empowerment means to actually be able to be present with our own sexual energy, to own it. I think these words are so important, to own it. Can you own it? Over and over again in my workshops, as we are expressing in our safe space, as we start to express sexuality in a different way, we explore to be able to own it, not to fake it, not to kind of act all sexy and fake it up. There's a lot of that too. You know, the fake sexuality, the kind of, you know, put on the little sexy dress and dance like Beyonce. You know, there's a lot of it that's fake in our world, and it's the reason it's fake is because it's a shell over the top of the fear. It's an attempt to break out of that fear, but it's not integrated. So we need to be able to share our fears and express them and be witnessed in them, and then from that place of true vulnerability, begin to feel and access the true energy and life force that is in us, and express that in a genuine way. Okay, it's different from creating a false facade of our sexuality and how sexual I am, and that's not sexual empowerment at all. It might look like it on the surface, but it's not. In Taoism, they have a word for that. They call it empty yang. When we create an expression on the outside, but we haven't really done the inner work, then it's called empty yang. It's a world of fake orgasms and faking it, and it's inside. One is crying out because of the lack of integration, the lack of integrity, and not really being there. So there's a lot of dissociation in sexuality, where we offer our sexuality out, but if we're not fully present at the heart and soul of it, then it's really not a genuine thing. We have to let our consciousness fly away when we're sexual. It's not deeply fulfilling. So sexual empowerment is not about creating a new persona and, you know, covering over a fearful persona with a confident persona. It's about dismantling the whole lot. It's about sharing the fears. It's about getting into the vulnerability. It's about feeling what's truly alive. It's about making space and breath for that aliveness, and starting to let that move through the body and let that sound through the throat. Whatever's there, whatever's real, not for anybody else, but for yourself and for life itself to start moving through you. To reclaim erotic innocence, to reclaim it as part of nature, to reclaim it as part of this universe, and to clear the guilt and shame and fear bit by bit until we can really let that move through our bodies for ourselves. That's why I'm a big fan of doing women-only work or men-only work for a while in Tantra before coming together with the opposite gender, because it's too easy when the opposite gender's there to make it all about them. It's just a big temptation. When you do your single gender work, then it's much more easy to find your empowerment, to really find your sexuality for you. And I believe it's very helpful to find it for yourself before you go sharing it with anybody else. So there are many ways of doing it, but that's the way that I found works really, really well. And when you're then really empowered in your sexuality, you feel safe. And yeah, maybe predators or creepy people come along, but it's like, I'm owning it. I've got a strong energy field around me. I'm sending off a true frequency that shows that I'm fully here, fully present. There's no holes left for energy to get in, for unwanted energy to get in, you know? It's like the process of empowerment. We're bringing consciousness into each part of our body and each part of our energy field and each part of our sexuality until it's all fully conscious. And then we're going to share it consciously, intentionally, with love, with whom we choose, how we choose. And so long as there's still little holes in our aura, if you like, or like little spaces that are unconscious, then there's still a space that somebody could get in there and manipulate us or take advantage of us. So the greatest empowerment is our own consciousness, and there's no alternative for that. This can be a bit of a process. It can be fast and powerful in some people. It can take many years. It's really different with everyone and how ready one is to do this journey. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about the mechanics of it and how much it's helped me in my life, and this is why I have such a big passion to share this work with others. So I hope that's helpful for someone out there to understand a little bit about fear and empowerment and the journey that we can take with our sexuality.